I still have, and loading it in the kiln with the art teacher in elementary school. I got to have special time with the art teacher because we did portraits of different occupations, and I did a farmer. And my farmer was standing like this, and I foreshortened this foot. And they were like, why does he have a club foot? And I'm like, no, if you look at it, that's how it is. And that's when I started being able to work with the art teacher directly. But isn't it weird? I'm loading a kiln in the second grade with the art teacher, and I end up getting an MFA in ceramics. I guess that's the way that goes, right? But I had fabulous art teachers. I went to a community college, had an incredible ceramics teacher. Took ceramics the second semester of my freshman year, which is 50 years ago right now. And decided my second semester of my freshman year I wanted to teach college level ceramics, and was able to do it, which is amazing, full time. I worked at Airy College. Jen would remember that. And I taught ceramics and sculpture and fibers and art history and TV design and drawing. We could go on and on. In the small department, you get to do a little bit of everything, which really helped broaden my experience through a variety of media. I mean, we even taught metalsmith in one semester. There's so many things in your life that influence how things come out. And I think that a lot of those are indelible. I mean, I remember being a child and going on camping trips with my parents, and our goal in life was to see an eagle. Now, this was in the 60s, and you know, things had happened with DDT where eggs were not able to come to term, and eagle population was going way down, along with all the other raptors, because they had the same problem. And ultimately, Rachel Carson identified that, and I got an ad that her 100th birthday was a couple of years ago, and they were going to have some kind of proclamation about Rachel Carson. And they didn't do it because there were people in the legislature who said, that hysterical spinster. And this is just a couple of years ago. Doesn't that blow your mind? But so the goal became looking for eagles. And we never saw one. Now I see them in Adrian, which is amazing to me. You know, I was at the art center, one flew right over me about 2 weeks ago. So I think that really says that we made some progress. And we can make progress on a lot of environmental issues, but we decide not to because the near term is more important than the far term. Yeah, I think that's not such a good thing. Yeah. But anyway, so I was able from that experience to really have a feel for the environment. My mom also had a career in science, and I remember things in formaldehyde floating in my grandparents' incredible garage. They had this incredible garage, and you know, my mom always was anxious to show my brother and I all these things. You know, I couldn't touch any of them. I actually dissected a field pig without ever touching it. She was like, "How can you be my daughter?" She talked about working on some apparatus where it had mercury in it, and it would come out of the apparatus, and they'd be scooping it up on the floor with their hands. I'm like, lucky I don't have 3 heads and stuff like that. But anyways, okay, I got off track. I think what I want to talk about is I'm going to talk about media first. I'm going to talk about 4 areas, and we'll talk about concept and inspiration last. But I worked in a bunch of different media. How did I go from clay to all these other media? Well, when I got into graduate school, I was just tired of making a piece and putting it on a pedestal. I thought, how boring can that be? And I was mostly a sculptural person. In clay. I didn't work a lot with making pots. I did some. I didn't get good at that till I had to teach. You know, then you had to do everything for all of your students. So you had to know how to do all of those things. And so I had to really perfect that as I was teaching. So after that, then I started my graduate studies, and I was like, if I use these other media, then I could really stretch what I could do, because that leaves inspiration. what inspires me to do what I do and why do I do it. My mom's science career is pretty important. I still have many of her college texts with these beautiful line drawings before they had photographs and stuff that are just so wonderful. I steal ideas from them all the time. Nature obviously is a big inspiration to me. Camping, the whole experience of camping and going all over the country. We went for like 6 weeks one time, all over the country, my mom and dad, my brother. The Eagle, Rachel Carson. Oh, there's one other story I want to tell about Rachel Carson. Okay, so when I was in high school, we had to do a major paper our senior year, and I did mine on Silent Spring. Surprise, surprise. And I had this beat-up paperback copy that I referred to every once in a while. And it was all written all over, and it was falling apart. And I went to the Goodwill, and there's a nice hardbound Silent Spring. So I thought, well, I'll get that. I got it home. It didn't have a fly jacket, but I got it home. It was a first edition. And I met the new director of the Goodwill and said, hey, thanks. And I was like, oh, geez, how did I miss that? Other things that have influenced me is Anastasi, pictographs, and petroglyphs. Those are images carved into stone. And Mike and I went on this incredible trip where we went to a part of Canyonlands in Utah that is not actually part of the big, it's not contiguous with the big part of Canyonlands. And you have to drive in on this sand road, I don't know, 20 miles. And then you get to this trail that's supposed to be a Jeep trail, and I'll be damned if I know how they got a Jeep up and down that. But anyways, we went walking down this riverbed. It was May. We're walking down the riverbed. It has no water in it. Water girl. I am totally freaked out by that. I could never live in the Southwest because of that. And you come around this bend, and there they are. It's called the Great Gallery, and it's pictographs of figures, but they're very archetypal in shape. They're, you know, kind of the head and the chili pepper bottom. And they believe the ones that were actually filled in were the corporeal people who actually existed, and the ones that weren't filled in were the people who passed on. But they are way up on Canyon Wall, rather large and pretty impressive. So that got me started on all this figurative stuff. I started there and got it more into making paper figures, all kinds of stuff with arms and legs, and a little bit more articulated. So that was a big influence. The other thing is dreams. I had this most spectacular dream that I think really influenced my wanting to keep things from the ceiling looking like they were just hovering there. It was a flying dream. And what it was I dreamt I was flying. And it was this azure blue mixed with ice crystals and sunlight, and it was reflecting off the ice crystals. It was the most beautiful thing you could ever imagine. And I'm flying, and all of a sudden I look out ahead of me. And you know how to see the ghost image of the moon during the day once in a while? There were 2 ghost Earths. So I was flying to Earth, because I was thinking, oh, I'm flying away from Earth, pretty soon I won't be able to breathe, pretty soon it'll be really cold. Oh, no, I was flying to Earth. So I think that whole idea of floating, of being able to X out gravity, have something to do with this obsession with the hanging stuff. Pods and seeds, I love all that kind of stuff. I have a huge pod collection. Never known one, I might get an idea from that. Birds have been a big, because of the Rachel Carson connection. Birds have been a big influence and big inspiration to me. Once in a while, political stuff, choice. Choice, AIDS. My brother died of AIDS, and so that became a really important issue to me. Fossils. I mean, I had to laugh when I read Liz's statement, because one of my earliest memories is being on a Lake Michigan beach and finding the stone that was as big as my hand, and it had what looked like a little claw or a tooth, and it was gray with a little brown, you know, and my mom explaining to me that there were things that lived before I did, fossils, and I'm like, what? You're kidding me. I still have that stone. Because there's something about the past and memory that also figures into my work. This particular body of work has to do with trees. Obviously, it's all tree material. And when I go on a beach and I look at all of this life, it's just incredible. And when I think about the fact that we didn't know until 20 years ago about one of the largest organisms in the world, which occurs under trees. We didn't know about it, and the people who promoted it were thought of as crackpots, I read The Hidden Life of Trees. That's where this got started with, by Walden. And he talks about mother trees and all that. Well, I traced that back, and there's actually a woman, Suzanne Samard, who did all the research on it. And she came up with the idea of mother trees, all this kind of stuff, the wood wide network and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't generally accepted until the last couple of years. They thought she was crazy. Sounds like Rachel Carson, doesn't it? Yeah. So these pieces are about trees and venerating trees. I have a lot of childhood memories of trees. I used to love to climb trees. And I would love to climb out to the toes of the, right at the edge and be part of the wind with the trees. It's a good thing I didn't get killed. My mother knew what I was doing all this. But it was something about moving with the wind and being part of that tree that really makes me remember what being a child was, and really feeling something like these are living beings too. I think humans have gotten a little bit too, we know everything. Well, if you didn't even know what was underneath trees, what else is there in the world we don't know about? That in our ignorance, we're going to kill off, and it's going to hurt us, because trees supply a huge amount of our oxygen. They take in a huge amount of carbon. Like one of the sequoias takes in enough carbon to X out like 500 emissions from cars for an entire year.
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing what trees do. And you remember, Trump wanted to neaten up all of the forest because that's what was burning. No, that's what keeps it moist underneath the ground to let all this stuff happen. And that's why we're having fires out west, because it's not moist enough. Not like it should have been, or it used to be. So I learned a lot about trees, and thought, well, I really need to say something about that. So I started making our organs out of tree material. I started there and expanded into some other areas, like combining tracheas with funnels and anchors and things like that. But it's been an interesting evolution. I started this when COVID, we had the shutdown for COVID, and I just kept working on it. So everything here is pretty much from the last couple of years. Each one of these pieces these little things, gets 6 holes in them. It's a tiny, tiny drill bit, like maybe a 1/6 of the size of a pencil lead.
Wow.
So it works out well when I drill into my finger. It's not all that bad. And I use super glue. And I used to, they say put on, fingernail polish remover, it'll get your fingers apart. No. I just take an X-Acto now and just cut it apart. So I just started making these things, and they just kept going. And I keep thinking, it's the end. It's the end of the sticks, the driftwood sticks, and the electrical resistors, because in my mind, those two things together said something about the trees communicating, because the roots of the tree are really the brains of the tree, and they go out and they know when there's danger, or where there's moisture, or when another tree is in danger, and they need to share resources. And so that's how I ended up with the resistors. I thought of those in motherboards, we use computers to communicate. So in my mind, that makes some sense.
Absolutely.
I hope it does in yours too. So I just kept doing variations on a theme. But like I said, I kept thinking, this is the end of this. I'm done with this. I'm ready to move on to the next thing. And no, I have more ideas. So it's going to continue for a while longer. Thank God my husband's really good at finding those things online. You know, when they had the computer shortage, computer part shortage, we were having trouble finding it, but he's really good at it. So I found enough to finish the show, but I look forward to doing a lot more. But anyway, I'll attempt to figure, I don't know. But I love wood burning. And previously I wood burned on flat surfaces. And I said to myself, I am never ever doing that again. And what did I do? Wood burning on uneven surfaces. It was the worst. It was really difficult. But I really like it because if you look at a trachea, they're striated. And you can easily see that. And so I started doing that. I also got into splicing wood together. So this is actually spliced together, and you can't even see the splice because I'm actually getting good at it. When I started out, I wasn't so good at it, but now I've got these ideas for splicing these pieces of wood together so I can make these big, I don't know, S-curve, long branches. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I get these ideas, and if I don't do them, they haunt me. So I might as well just get it over with and just do it. So, because it always turns into something. I'm just not sure what it's going to be. And this is a womb. Originally I was going to have this hang, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I'm not so sure it's such a big structure. I had a way to figure it out, but it kind of sat around my studio like this, and I kind of got used to it. I was incubating a baby tree, and I felt like it needed something else, and I think this light green is the antithesis of something growing. And in the last couple weeks, we've seen the haze in the tree, that green color. I just love that, so I decided it needed that green color. But drilling the holes in that tree thing almost killed me.
Can I ask a quick question? So as we can see, the shadows are lovely. So does the lighting play in the conceptual design, or does that become?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything I make is, I like linear stuff. It's a preset for me. I like that. And everything I make, it looks good in a shadow. But it's all from that chromosome thing. When I started that chromosome thing, my life changed. I'd never considered, what shadows could do. And it actually functions as another part of the exhibition.
It does.
And so when Liz was like, oh, your pieces are so delicate, they're going to look like anything, I said, once I'm ready, it'll be fine. Because it's like you've got 2 or 3 of the same piece.
Yeah.
This is actually what I started out with. I went to Haystack, which is an art school on the coast of Maine. Fabulous place. And I started making this net because I was taking this class. Actually, I was a technical assistant in this class. And I started, because our teacher was like, take 2 elements and make some kind of structure. So I brought Great Lakes driftwood because what I want, ocean driftwood. So I brought Great Lakes driftwood, and I had the resistors. I just hadn't thought about putting them together until she said that. I'm like, oh, I can make a thing out of structure out of that. And that's how all of this started. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. And again, a driftwood heart, yeah. These are, I've got more ideas for these. You know how a snow fence, you roll it off? Got this idea for making big ones and rolling them off, like so they're sculptural, freestanding things. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. And ladders. I got these kind of ladder forms I'm working on. This is a backbone. Let me turn around here so you can see a little better. Because I have scoliosis, so I have a real nice curve in my spine. So I decided I'd make my spine as a tree. And because many trees are not straight up and down. And so these two kind of talk to one another in that this one, I turn around again. This one I named trunk, like a tree trunk. And that one I named backbone. So it's kind of switching them. This is actually one of the first 3-dimensional structures other than the net that I made. Because I just wanted to see if I could do it. And people are like, oh, this is so so detailed, so painstaking. Yeah, it is. But I just go and work a couple hours a day at least. Sometimes I'll do a whole day doing it. You know, I'll usually switch to some other stuff because it gets a little crazy. And I just work on it every day, and pretty soon you've got something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's how I make pots anymore. I make pots, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And usually I'll make like, you know, maybe I'll make 2 or 3 cups a day. At the end of the month, you got a whole lot of cups. This Mysocausal piece here is actually, in my mind, what those little wood tips look like.
Those are resistors.
Resistors, yeah, electrical resistors, all electrical resistors. And they all come in the same size, well, same length, pretty much. But they don't regulate how thick they are. This thing, I just love the structure. I had to add on a part here, add on parts here, but as I said, I'm getting better at splicing. I'm going to be teaching a driftwood sculpture class at the Art Center. We have a conference for the Michigan Art Education Association and their professional development, because for licensure, teachers have to have so many credits per year, and I'm going to be teaching that at the MAEAPD this summer, and I'm really excited about that. See what my students come up with. Maybe we can get some great ideas. And again, this is balsa wood. And, you know, during COVID, lungs, I'm thinking about tears, that kind of thing. So tears are kind of working into my work. Seeds. This one is actually kinetic, and I have to figure out a way to get that to function more. It's on a little bouncy, so that maybe it would do it more. But boy, I hit it a couple times while I was working on it. I'm like, wow. And I like the shadow, that the dense interior and the dispersed exterior. So I want to do more with that. And another snow fence derived art piece. This one, okay, so I put the heart in there. It was the normal color, and then I said, that thing needs to be red. Well, I went to the store and got red markers, and I'm like trying not to hit and paint that red.
Oh my gosh.
It would be better if it were more consistent, I think, but I think it works out.
Are you serious?
That's how I did it. Markers can do all kinds of stuff.
That's amazing. Because you didn't have a paintbrush or paint? What?
Well, because I was afraid paint would get dripped all over it, and I didn't want it on this other part.
Oh, I see.
So that's the way I could control it. You know, so I had it taped to a stick so I could.
So
It only took a couple days, you know. This is a stomach. When I start out, I don't so much have a plan. I mean, in terms of how the structure's going to go, I just start working. And so it started with these circles because I had to get out to the outside, and that was the easiest way I could think about doing that. But it creates a really interesting look when you look at it very, you know, kinetic almost. And I didn't have a stick that was that shape, so I had to splice 2 together. So I ended up with this little, and when I splice stuff together, I pin it. I don't just glue it. It's pinned together. And so it ends up with this little thing, and then I'm thinking about the title of it, and I'm like, oh, knot. Like a knot in your stomach.